Hey everyone, welcome to tweak.dev. I am Gaurav and today we'll be looking at an interesting topic that I came across while working for a freelance gig. So the requirement was that the nodejs application should not stop in case of a crash. So that is when I came across PM2, which is a daemon process manager which allows you to manage and keep your applications online. And I thought I would create a video so that I can share this information with you guys. So let's dive into the video and find out how it works. Now, what are the main use cases to use PM2? Well, the first one, as I already told you, you want to restart the application automatically in case of a crash. And the second one is when you're looking for an automatic load balancer without writing any additional code. And you also heard me use the term daemon process manager. The term daemon means that once you start the application, it will keep on running in the background. So that is what the term daemon means. Now let's take a look at the example through which we are going to see how PM2 works. So here we have a simple Express server. We are importing it from the Express package, running it on port 3000. We have two endpoints over here. The default one, which is just, logging this, returning the context text. And we have this context, which is being returned as a JSON response. Then we have this crash endpoint, which we will be using to simulate the crash. We are just basically exiting the process over here and giving the exit code as 1. So this will basically crash the application, and then this is the logic for starting the HTTP server or our Express server, right? So let's take a look at this app. So we want to start this app by saying node server.js, right? So it's saying the example app started on port 3000. Let me just do a refresh. And you can see that the server has been started and it's giving us this context as the response, which we can see over here. Now we want to crash this application, right? So we have the endpoint crash over here. So I'll enter that and you can see that this site is no longer accessible. Even if I hit localhost 3000, it says the site can be reached, right? So you can see that the text crashing the app was printed and our server has stopped. Now what we will do is we will install PM2. So I'm using pnpm, which is a package manager just like npm. So I will say pnpm add PM2 and you want to install it globally. So give it the -g flag. Now I have this already installed on my machine. So I'm not going to run this command. So once we have this installed, you have access to the utility functions. You have access to the utilities provided by the PM2 command, right? So what we will do is now we will start our server using PM2. So we will do that by saying PM2 start and the name of the file that we want to start, which is server.js. All right. So you can see that it started this server as a daemon process. And if we hit localhost 3000, right, you can see we're getting a response. And now let's crash this, right? It's saying that we're not getting any data, right? And if I go back and hit enter again, you can see I'm getting a response, right? So even though we crashed the application, PM2, which is a process manager, it restarted our application automatically without us having to, intervene or manually restart the applications ourselves. To better understand how this is working, let's take a look at a few other commands which are provided by PM2. So let's start the logs. So we'll say PM2 logs, right? So when I restart this, you can see that it's saying returning the context, which is printed from here, right? And now I am saying crash. I'm calling the crash endpoint. You can see that the application has been crashed and then it is trying to restart the application and it restarted the application on port 3000. And let's take a look at some of the other commands which are given by PM2. So we have PM2 list. So it will give you the list of all the processes which are managed by, or list of all the applications which are managed by PM2. So right now we only have server, right? Suppose you were to start another application. So I have another file over here, diff.js, which is just having a console.log statement saying coming from diff.js. So let's start that. So we will say PM2 start diff.js. So now you can see we have two processes which are managed by PM2. One is diff and the other one is server, right? And you can see the logs over here coming from diff.js. And if I do anything over here, it will give us the log for this as well, returning the context and, uh, coming from diff.js. So you can clearly see from this that you can manage multiple applications or processes using PM2. Let me stop the logs right now. Similar to the logs command, we have the monitor command, right? PM2 monitor. And the difference between the two is just this, that it gives you an interactive CLI. So here, if I just refresh this, right, it is giving us the logs for the server. If I move it up, it is giving me the logs for the diff.js file. Let me exit the monitor view. And also you can stop the processes that you have started. So we have these two processes, right? Diff and server. So we can say, suppose I just want to stop diff. So we'll say PM2 stop diff, right? So you can see it has stopped diff and server is still online. If I wanted to stop all of them, so I can say PM2 stop all. All right, so it will stop all the processes. If I want to kill the processes, I will say PM2 kill, and it will kill server and whatever processes that it was managing, right? Now, when you're working on a project and you're developing it, you would also like to include the file changes, right? You don't want to keep on restarting the application whenever the files are changing. So PM2 comes with a watch mode as well. So let's see how we can do that. So what we will do is we will make use of the script functionality over here. So we will just create a dev script over here, and we will say PM2 start server.js. This is the same way as how you would write it in the terminal or the command prompt in case you are using Windows, right? And we will just pass it the watch flag so that it watches for the file changes. Okay, so I will use my package manager, which is pnpm, and I will run the dev command. Okay, and we will also take a look at the logs. So I will say PM2 logs, right? So the example app has been started on port 3000. Now, if I make any code change over here, right? So example app listening on port 3000. I made the change. You can see it detected a file change over here, and it is stopping the existing server and restarting it, right? If I do a refresh, it is saying returning the context. It is showing us the log, right? So this is another handy feature. And not only that, you can also tell it which files to watch and which files to ignore. And we'll be looking at that a bit later on. Now we are having to start the server separately and watch and take a look at the log separately. So what we will do is we will install another package which is known as concurrently. Okay, so I will say pnpm add concurrently, and I want to save it as a dev dependency. Now I have this already installed, so I'm not going to run this command. You can see it is already available in my package.json file as a dev dependency. Now what this package allows us to do, it allows us to concurrently run multiple commands together. So what we will do is we will say concurrently, right? And we will just escape this. So we will start a server in the watch mode, and what we want to do is we want to say PM2 logs, right? And we want to escape this backslash. All right. So it will concurrently run these two commands. Okay. Now we are going to say PM2 kill, right? So it will kill all the processes. Now we will just take a look. So we'll say PM2 list just to make sure none of the processes are running. So none of the processes are running. And now we will say PM dev. So you can see that it has started the server over here. And just to make sure none of the processes are running, we will just take a look at the PM2 list command. And we can see that none of the processes are running. Now we'll say PM dev, right? So it has started the server, and you can see the logs as well. So that is how you can combine two commands together using concurrently, right? And now if I do localhost 3000, it is printing the logs as well. So if you would have noticed right now, even when I exit out of the terminal, and if I list all the commands, you can see that our process is still online. Since PM2 is a daemon process manager, it basically daemonizes your application and it continues to run it in the background even though you have exited it. So that is okay in case of production, right? You want to start the application and you want to be able to work on other things. But when you're doing active development, right, when you're developing the application, you would not like that kind of a behavior. So it also gives us a no daemon flag, using which when you exit the terminal, it will also kill the process the moment you exit it, right? So let's see how we can do that. So we will say over here, no hyphen daemon, right? This is the flag which you can use. And another thing that we have to do is when you're using the no daemon flag, you have to ensure that you're first killing all the processes. So we will say PM2 kill, and then we will start it, right? So we will once again run this command PM2, sorry, p npm dev, right? So it is first killing it, then it started the server, and example app is listening on port 3000. Let's do a refresh. Let's crash the application as well. So you can see even though the app has been crashed, right? It was crashed over here, then it's trying to restart the application. Okay. And let's make sure it's listening to the file changes as well. So example app started on port 3000. You can see that it detected a file change, right? So it restarted the application. Let's do a refresh, and you can see that the application is still running. Okay. And now when we close the application, you can see that it has closed the server as well as the logs command. But just to make sure, let's run the PM2 list command to see if any of the processes are running. And you can see that now none of the processes are running. So this is pretty handful, the no daemon flag, when you're trying to work in the development environment. Right now, the next thing that we want to look at is the load balancer mode, which is provided by for nodejs applications that you manage through PM2. So the way we do it is that we will just say PM2 start server.js, and you give it the -i flag, and you give it the number of cores that you want to utilize. So in our case, we are going to use max. That is it is going to make use of all the CPUs or all the cores that your system provides, right? So I'm using an Apple M1 chip. Let's see how many cores does it have. How many cores does the M1 have? So you can see that the Apple M1 chip has 8 CPU cores. So let's try to run this command now and see how many servers it is creating. So you can see that it has created from 0 to 7, it has created 8 server instances. If I do a refresh, you can see that my server is still working, right? and all of them are online. So basically, when we run this command, it starts the process in cluster mode. All right, so let's do PM2 stop all. So sorry, PM2 stop all. So it has stopped all the servers. Okay. And you can also specify a different number over here. Suppose I just want to use 2 cores, right? So I will specify 2 over here instead of max. And let's run this command, and you can see it has created 2 instances of the application, and it is running on 2 different cores. Okay. Another neat feature which is provided by PM2 is that you can create a ecosystem config file which you can use to specify the different flags which are available. So let's see how we can do that. So let's create this ecosystem config file. So we will say PM2 init, and we will just use simple, right? So it created this ecosystem.config.js file. Now, if you take a look at this package.json file, we are using the type module over here. That means that they will not understand the common JS syntax. So we will just change the extension to CJS so that it will understand this file type, right? And here we will give the name of our app. So let's do one thing. Let's create 2 separate configurations for production and development mode. So we will call this as server dev, and let's give the path of the file that we want to start the script at. So it is server.js in our case. And for development mode, we want to enable the watch. So we will set this to true. And the files that we do not want to watch, we can use the ignore watch property and give it a list of files that we would like to exclude from the watch. So we want to exclude the node modules, right? And you can give a regex pattern over here as well. Let's create another config for the production mode, and we will just call it as server. And we are not interested in the watch mode over here, but we would like to start this in the load balancer mode. We will make use of the exec mode property, and we will specify cluster over here. And to specify how many cores we want to use, we will make use of the instances property, and we will specify max over here. All right, now to use this, we will go to our package.json. Now instead of saying start server.js, here we will give the ecosystem file name. So ecosystem.config.cjs, and we want to start this in the no daemon mode, right? Because for the dev one, right? And we want to get rid of the watch flag because we have already provided that in the ecosystem file. Okay. And similarly, let's create another script over here for prod. And here we will just say PM2 start ecosystem.config.cjs. Now you might be wondering how it will understand when to use the production config and when to use the development one. So what we will say over here is that we will make use of the only flag, and we will specify the name that we have provided over here. So in case of server, it is server dev, right? So we will say only server dev. So it will only start the server dev configuration, right? And here we will say only server, which is the production one. Let's do PM2 list. So you can see these two are online. Now we will just say PM2 kill to kill all of them. And now we will say pnpm dev, right? So you can see that it has started the server dev, which was the one in development mode. It is online, and you can see that the application is running on port 3000. It is printing the logs as well. If we try to crash the application, it will crash it and restart it. And let's try to make some changes. Server app listening. So you can see it is restarting the application even on file changes. And when we exit this, let's make use of PM2 list to verify that none of the processes are running. So it's not running. And now let's try to run the prod one. So you can see that it has created 8 instances of it, and because that is what we specified over here in this configuration. Let's see if this is working. We can make use of the PM2 monitor command, and let's try to print this. Which server is it using? Let's try to crash this. All right, so you can see that it is, it crashed the server and the logs are there. Right? So this one wasn't crashed, the one on server instance 1, but this one was crashed. This one was crashed. So some of them were crashed, some of them were not crashed. Right? So you can see all of the logs over here, right? So all of the instances are running, and if there are a lot of requests coming into your application, that will be automatically balanced between the different server instances which are running through PM2, right? Let's exit this, and if we do PM2 list, you can see all of them are still running because in the production mode we are not using the no daemon flag, right? So it is running in the background. So that is it for this video. I hope you learned a lot from this video, and well, as usual, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel to receive notifications. Click on the bell icon and do leave your comments. Let me know what other topics that you would like to see. If it's possible for me, I'll try to cover them. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care.